Everyone thought he was a loser weeb, but he bags a Russian baddie with his Russian-speaking skills, shocking everyone. Alya is the most sought-after girl in the school because of his beautiful looks and because she is half Russian from her father's side. She is an all-around genius with excellent grades in both studies as well as sports, and starting this year, she is also going to be the treasurer of the student council. Everyone makes way for her as she walks, when a senior blocks her path and introduces himself as Ando. He claims that he has heard a lot about her from her sister, and asks her out for a date, but the cold-hearted Alya immediately rejects him, in front of everybody. Ando persists and asks her for her number at least, but Alya tells him that she has no interest whatsoever in his pathetic discordant face, completely destroying the man's confidence. She also tells him to take out the chain as it is against the school rules before walking away, while all the students are shocked that she just destroyed the most popular guy in the school. Alya doesn't give a damn about all this, though, as she enters her classroom and sits down beside her friend Q's sleeping on his desk. She kicks the chair, waking him up as she glares at him, asking whether his pathetic ass was watching anime all night again. He tells her that anime is an art form of the gods, and she shouldn't disrespect it as it has helped several guys escape loneliness, and tells her that he had a fight on Twitter with a neckbeard about whether lolis are legal or not. She doesn't understand his yapping and turns away, but when he starts yawning, she ends up saying something in Russian, which embarrasses her. She claims that it was nothing, after which Q starts looking for his chemistry book, realizing that he forgot to bring it. Alya agrees to share her book, so he attaches their table, and the class starts. In the middle, he starts sleeping again while the teacher was asking questions, so Alya jabs him with a pen, making him jump up in pain. The teacher asks whether he knows the answer, and he is forced to stand up not even knowing what the question is. He looks towards Alya, who points out towards the word copper, and he immediately blurts it out. But it's the wrong answer, after which Alya stands up and tells them the right answer. They sit down and Q's asks why she is making fun of him, but she claims that he should be aware that people can lie. He screams at her for being a bad friend, but she replies with something Russian, which she claims meant stupid. Q's, however, is not satisfied, and he repeats the phrase in his mind only to realize that she called him cute, as she doesn't know that he can understand a little bit of Russian. When he was a kid, there was a Russian girl that moved in his neighborhood, so he ended up picking up phrases from her. Unbeknownst to Alya, Q's can basically understand everything she says, but knows that if he calls her out, she will die of embarrassment. A little while later, the class gets over and Q's immediately takes out his phone. Alya tells him it's not allowed, but Q's claims that it's an emergency as he has the chance to get a gift in Genshin. He looks at it before screaming happily that he got the moon goddess, after which Alya grabs his phone and looks at it to find a silver-haired woman in the game. She hands it back to him while he sims over the goddess like a total weirdo. Alya seems to be hurt as she mumbles in Russian that even she has silver hair, but when Q's asked what she said, she claims that she called him a try-hard gamer. He tells her that she is wrong, as he only plays free-to-play characters, unlike true sweaty tryhards who use pay-to-win characters to play the game. Alya simply tells him that he will die alone if he stays a shut-in like this before moving away. During the lunch break, Q sits with his friends at a table. The bald creep with no bitches is named Maru, while the blondie is called Kyo. Maru keeps yapping about how he has never smelled a girl and will probably die alone, when suddenly they spot Alya and her group of girls in the canteen as they try and look for seats. Kyo admires the beauty of the Russian sisters, while Maru gossips about how he heard that Masha is dating someone as she keeps turning down any guy that asks her out. Q's tells Maru that he wouldn't have a chance even if he was the last guy left, while the baldy tells him to shut up and accuses him of being very dickish just because Alya talks to him. Q's turns to look at her, then tells Maru that she mostly snaps at him angrily, but Maru is a degenerate who would let girls step on him, so he doesn't mind being verbally berated. He claims that if he had a chance, he would have gone for Suo, because she seems to be the most approachable, but Kyo brings him to reality, claiming that she is still out of league, and has rejected even more guys than Alya or Masha. Q's turns around to see Alya and Suo walking their way when his eyes meet with Suo, who smiles at him and asks whether she can sit here. He agrees and Suo immediately takes her seat beside him while Alya sits across the table looking a bit grumpy and disappointed. Suo starts talking to Q's about their similar ramen choices and how they both think that the ramen should be made spicier, while Alya looks at her omelet and starts fuming. She asks Q's whether he and Suo know each other, and Suo replies that they have known each other since childhood as they went to preschool together and have been friends ever since. Q's asks Suo whether she is friends with Alya, but she claims that not yet, but hopefully they will become friends soon, while Alya looks down and claims that she wouldn't mind. Soon the two third-wheelers move away from the table, while Maru tells Q's to get the dub with these two and leaves. Immediately Suo shifts towards Q's, annoying Alya as she starts asking Q's whether he wants to join the council as she has offered him a position. Q's refuses, claiming that he has no interest whatsoever, but Suo persists, claiming that he will be a good fit with herself and Alya. Moreover, he also has experience being the vice president during middle school. This surprises Alya, but Q's claims that during that time, he was the VP while Suo was the president, but it was only because each president had to have a mate with them who can become the VP. Sup turns towards Alya and tells her that despite how he looks, he still knows how to get work done, but Alya seems annoyed as she drinks her cola, claiming in Russian that she already knew that and doesn't need her ugly ass to tell her. After lunch was over, Suo bids goodbye, leaving Alya and Q's alone, and Alya immediately asks whether they are close. Q's replies that they are good friends and asks why Alya looks so surprised. She claims that she never thought any girl would want to be a weeb's friend, but he points his finger at her, claiming that she is a girl and his friend. Alya is taken aback and claims that she is indeed his friend before walking away, claiming that she forgot something in the office. Later that night, Q's ends up dreaming about his childhood and the Russian girl who he would play with every single day as she taught him how to speak a little bit in Russian. She didn't know any Japanese, so Q's ended up forcing himself to learn Russian just to talk to her. He wakes up from the dream with a sad face as he realized that at this point she doesn't even remember her name. After that he didn't go to sleep, instead decided to head over for school, where he ended up cleaning everything in his classroom. By the time Alya arrived, the classroom was shining as Q's tells her that he woke up early and had nothing to do. She walks over to her desk and Q's notices that she has a stain on her socks. Alya explains that while walking, a truck ran over a puddle and splashed her, but she has extra socks so it doesn't matter. After that she looks at Q's and asks whether he really doesn't want to join the student council. Q's replies with a sigh that he indeed doesn't have any interest in the council. She looks a bit disappointed, but then she pulls out her sock and notices Q's looking away immediately. She decides to mess with him a bit, and tells him to bring a spare sock from her locker. He averts his eyes and gets the sock from the locker, but Alya tells him to put it on her feet. He is shocked at that, but Alya claims that it must be a treat for a creep like him, and Q's realizes that it indeed is a treat, when suddenly Alya speaks under her breath in Russian about how it is a treat for her as well. What a diabolical story, Jesus Christ. Q's starts psychoanalyzing her behavior and thinks whether she is a perfectionist who is using Russian with him to feel a little free or just some kind of exhibitionist. Anyhow, he drops down to his knees and grabs her feet, shocking Alya, who didn't think he would do it. She starts squirming away, but he holds her feet tightly and starts sliding on the sock slowly. While pulling it up, he accidentally touches her chicken thighs, which gets him a swift kick to the face, knocking him out, while Alya Rousey gets up and scurries away. Later that day, he texts his League of Legends forum about how he might have thing for feet when he notices that Alya still seems a bit mad. She walks out, and he follows her, immediately apologizing for his actions. She turns around and tells him that it was actually her fault as she kicked him and tries to touch his neck, asking whether he is hurt. He immediately backs off embarrassed, claiming she has nothing to apologize for as she showed him a peek of the promised Neverland. Alya suddenly realizes what he is talking about while Q's wonders why he is so stupid. Even after that he bows down and thanks her for the spectacular view, which gets him a punch to the face by Ronda Rousey, knocking him down. She starts running away, calling him a creep in Russian, but he gives chase, following her while she tells him to get lost. After a while he catches up to her and offers him her favorite cola as a peace offering. She takes a sip and asks in Russian whether he wants a sip. He ends up chickening out and pretends not to understand what she said, while Alya smiles and claims in Russian that she can express her feelings in Russian, which he will never understand, while Q stands there thinking that he knows Russian very well, but decides to keep it a secret for now to see what her true feelings are. Some days pass by when one afternoon, Yuki calls onto Q's and asks him to help her out clear the council room. He reluctantly agrees as his lazy ass is not used to working out. but he meets up with her regardless, and they start chatting when suddenly Alya appears from behind some boxes, looking a bit pissed to see the closeness between Yuki and Q's. He realizes that Yuki definitely set this whole thing up to mess with him, as she knows Alya likes him. They start cleaning everything and Yuki keeps chatting with him, while Alya seemingly gets even more pissed and tells Q's to pay more attention to work. Yuki realizes that this is the perfect time, so she excuses herself and moves out, when suddenly Q's hears Alya mumble in Russian that even she wants some attention. She keeps telling him to come near her in Russian, smugly thinking that she is literally throwing herself at him while he has no idea. Meanwhile, Q's is wondering what kind of a thirsty thought talks so openly. Thankfully for him, the remaining work gets sorted out pretty quickly, and he was about to take his leave when suddenly the door opens and a tall senior enters the room, surprised to see it all so clean already. Yuki tells him that Q's helped them, so he thanks Q's and introduces himself as Ken, the president of the student council. He tells Q's that he has heard a lot about him from both Alya and Yuki, but Q's starts feeling uncomfortable and decides to leave. Ken stops him, claiming that he helped them after school so he will buy him dinner tonight. Q's politely refuses the offer, claiming that he was just helping some friends. Before he can leave though, Yuki jumps in the conversation and tells him that he should accept the gift as he will have to cook for himself at home anyways. Ken ends up making the decision for them, and also invites both Yuki and Alya to join them for dinner. Later that evening, they all go down to a diner and sit down, while Ken again thanks Q's for helping them with the council work. Yuki tells him that Q's is pretty good at physical work as he gets it done pretty quickly. Moreover, he is an expert negotiator as well. Ken immediately recognizes his talent and offers him a position in the student council. Q's again politely refuses, claiming that he is done with student council work forever, as he didn't really enjoy it during middle school. Ken agrees that it is definitely a lot of work, but tells him that it has its own benefits as well. He tells Q's that being in a student council means that he has an automatic recommendation to join the best colleges in the country, but even after this Q's shows no interest as he simply wants to watch anime and enjoy life. Unfortunately for him, Yuki wouldn't stop writing him, and tells him that they can run for the next council president once again just like they did in middle school. Q's refuses this time more firmly, while Ken tells him that Yuki is going to have tough competition as Alya is also going to run for the council president. Q's had no idea about it, and he looks at her for confirmation. Alya tells him that she is indeed going to run against Yuki next year during the elections, but before they could talk any further, their food arrives. After the dinner, they all part ways as Ken head on the other direction alongside Yuki, leaving Q's to drop Alya back home. On the way back, Q's asks Alya whether she is actually going to run against Yuki, but she doesn't seem to be very eager to talk about it, and tells him that she will go on her own from here. Q's bids her goodbye and heads back home, only to find Yuki sprawled on the couch, reading a romantic novel. It turns out that Yuki is actually Q's real sister, but because she wants to be his wingman, she is pretending to be his love interest to make Alya jealous and want him more. He tells her that he doesn't need her help and heads back to sleep. The next morning, he gets woken up by his annoying sister once again, who jumps on top of his bed and tells him to get up even though it's a Sunday. This annoying brat then drags Q's all the way to a mall to have some good breakfast, but she starts forcing him to watch a movie with him. He refuses, and they head out to a nearby clothing store where he notices that Yuki's behavior is changed, and he asks what's up with that. She tells him that she noticed Alya tailing them, so she is going to stop behaving like his sister. He wonders what he should do right now, but before he could even say anything, Yuki ends up moving towards Alya and greets her warmly. Alya gets pretty embarrassed, but pretends that she just came here to shop some clothes and they met by coincidence. The bratty sis asks Alya whether she has had lunch yet, as they were just going to a restaurant, and invites Alya to join them. She then asks whether Alya likes spicy food, but poor Alya has only had mildly spicy curry and claims that she is fine with spices. Yuki tells her that they are going to a ramen place that serves pretty spicy food and invites her to join. Q's decides to come clean and tells Alya that the ramen is not just normal spicy. In fact, this restaurant makes ramen insanely spicy enough to make lava come out anyone's ass. Alya feels like Q's is trying to push her away to be alone with Yuki, so she decides to join them regardless. They head out to the ramen place, which scares the daylights out of Alya, who has never seen such a demonic-looking restaurant before. Q's tells Alya that she is making a mistake, but Alya is determined and goes in with them. Soon they order a bowl of ramen each, while Alya notices that Yuki is wearing quite boyish clothes today. Yuki decides to use this as an advantage, and tells Alya that this morning she was in bed with Q's, so she decided to borrow one of his shirts for the day. Q's ends up spitting out the water he was drinking while Alya looks at him darkly. He tries to explain himself, claiming that she just ended up jumping on his bed while he was sleeping, but Alya doesn't buy it even for a second. Thankfully, the ramen bowl arrives just in the nick of time, which shocks Alya completely as she has never seen something as red and hot as this bowl. Yuki and Q's seem pretty fine with it, as Yuki tells them all to dig in before the noodles get soggy. Alya decides that she can't be left behind, so she immediately takes out the chopsticks and cools the noodles down a little bit before gulping them down. Immediately the spice hits her, but she pretends to be completely fine. Q's and Yuki also start eating, and don't find the spice too much as they are used to it. But Q's ends up hearing Alya mumbling in Russian about how insanely hot it is, and he gets worried, so he asks her not to eat it, as they can get something else for her. Alya tells him that she likes the heat a lot, while Q's can literally see her tearing up and asking for help in Russian. Before he can say anything again, Yuki asks Alya about what she thinks of this dish, and when Alya says that she likes it, Yuki messes with her even more and gives her hot sauce to add in her ramen to make it taste even hotter. Q's tells Alya not to do it, but she is not going to lose this battle, so she puts a small amount of sauce in her noodles and tries it once again. This time she ends up screaming loudly, unable to control herself, and runs out of the restaurant. Q's follows her and finds her alone in a park and asks whether she is okay. Alya replies that she is fine, but Q's asks her whether she wants some ice cream, and she immediately agrees. He gets her a triple scoop, which she likes much more than the hellish ramen. But while she was eating, Q's again asks her why she wants to become the council president. This makes her mood sour quickly as she tells him that she just wants to try. He asks whether she has a partner, but she replies that she doesn't, claiming that she has no need for a partner and can do it all herself. He tells her that it doesn't work that way, as she needs to have someone to run for vice president with her. She replies that she will find a random person and put their name down in the register, and it should be fine. But under her breath, she mumbles in Russian that she would want him to be her partner. She finishes up her ice cream and asks Q's whether he has any plans, as she wants him to help her shop for some clothes. Q's agrees to help her, claiming that they are friends, which surprises her a little, as she wonders whether he is feeling pity for her because he thinks she doesn't stand a chance against Yuki. She angrily walks into the changing room, determined to blow his mind with her fashion sense, but gets cold feet thinking what if he doesn't react at all. She still comes out of the room, and to her surprise, the moment Q's sees her, he immediately compliments her, saying that the dress is making her look even prettier than she normally is. This blows her mind as she silently closes the curtains and starts panicking, while on the other side, even Q's starts feeling embarrassed of the cringy lines he just spoke. Alya decides to keep it going, so she starts changing her dresses one by one, giving a full-on fashion show to Q's, who compliments each and every dress on her, which makes her feel even better. She finally decides to try something a little more revealing and opens the curtains to pose, only to see that Yuki has also arrived. She quietly backs off and shuts the curtains before feeling embarrassed and wanting to crawl into a hole. Later that evening they head back together in the train, but Alya is still too fried to talk. Finally Yuki and Q's station comes, so they bid her goodbye and get off the train. Alya starts cussing herself for wearing something so skimpy, as now Q's will think she is a skank, when suddenly she realizes that both of them got off onto the same station, as she decides whether to spy on them or not. That night, Alya returns back home looking a little down, but she is immediately pounced on by her own sister, who hugs her and asks how her day was. Alya very lazily replies that it was fine before moving into her room. Masha, however, is not fooled so easily and asks Alya whether something happened because she isn't acting like her usual self. Alya takes a deep breath and claims that she just came back after meeting Q's and his childhood friend. Masha immediately starts smiling as she realizes that this is about a boy and asks Alya whether she likes him. Alya immediately defends herself by saying that she has no such feelings of him, and claims that they are only friends and nothing else. Masha starts laughing and asks how did this guy manage to steal her heart, considering she never liked being friends with anyone who was a lazy slacker, and she always wanted her friends to be perfectionists. She realizes that Masha is right, as 6 years ago, when she was still in Russia, They ended up getting a group project about learning the ins and outs of the local businesses. She eagerly divided group works amongst her friends and rigorously planned everything out as she wanted their report to be the best in the class. She followed the schedule perfectly and collected data on several businesses all alone on Sunday. But when she went back to school on Monday, she found out that none of her friends have even started thinking about it. She gets worked up and tells them that the report will take a lot of time to write. But her friends seem unconcerned, claiming that they have a full week to work on it. Suddenly, the blondie notices her work notebook and picks it up, claiming that Alya has literally written a whole essay already. They tell her to chill out as this is just a school assignment, but Alya is one of those perfectionists who got no chill, so she tells them to take this seriously. This results in her getting into a major argument with the blondie who tells her to do it all alone if she wants to be such a perfectionist and leaves. Later that evening, Alya stays over late and keeps writing the report and continues to do so every single day till finally the results of the reports is unveiled. A different group ends up winning because their report was more cohesive, while Alya holds back her tears clutching her group work that she did all alone. That day, while walking back home with tears glistening on her cheeks, she decides that from now on she will never depend on anybody because they will always disappoint her no matter what. After that, she ended up qualifying a very difficult examination and got transferred to Japan, where the first day, she ended giving a speech at the ceremony, which immediately made her a favorite. After the assembly, when the class was about to start, she noticed Q's for the first time, sleeping on his desk with no care in the world. She wakes her up, claiming that the class is about to start, and he groggily tells her that her speech was phenomenal. She introduces herself very cordially as she expected everyone at this super prestigious school to be perfectionists like her. Slowly the facade wears down as she notices that most students here are slackers as well, and most of all Q's was the biggest slacker, never bringing the correct books, always behind in physical education, and literally sleeping through the entire math class. Soon she starts going back in her shell, and not talking to others because they were disappointing her once again. Soon the seasons change and the school festival arrives. They all divide duties and start working on it. But even after being behind in all aspects, the students are very chill about it and go back home while Alya works overtime sewing the banner as she felt all alone once again. She hurts herself once again and puts on a band-aid when suddenly the door flings open and Q's enters the room. Alya is surprised to see him after the school is over, but he claims that she shouldn't overwork and go back home. Alya at this point is pretty prickly and tells him to mind his own business as she has a lot of work to do, but he tells her not to worry as he has sorted everything out. He used some connections to get permissions to stay overnight in the school. He also made some friends in the handicraft club and convinced them to help with the festival work as well, so now there are a lot of people who can help. He tells her to relax and go back home, but her feelings finally end up coming out as she tears up and claims that she can't relax because she wants to put a really good festival which people will genuinely enjoy, and she won't be satisfied with any shabby, and she will not compromise on the quality of work no matter what. He tells her that she is putting all her efforts in the wrong places. He claims that she is putting all her efforts into doing everything alone, but if she was smarter, she would have focused all her attention on convincing everyone else to work together, which would have lowered the load on her as well as involve all the students. She stands up and leaves the room while wondering what the hell is that guy's problem. The next day, however, is a total shift from what she was dealing with as Q's somehow motivated everyone to do their best for the festival, and they started coming up with hundreds of ideas for attractions. They started staying late in the school having fun and working together, and slowly Alya started opening up to her classmates again. The day of festival finally comes, and it turns out to be a total hit as their attraction ends up winning the Best Attraction in the School award by a large margin. The festival finally ends with a student dance, where Alya finds Q's sitting all alone. He asks why she is not dancing as everyone and their mothers would want to dance with her, but she claims that she doesn't want to dance right now because every boy keeps bothering her about it. Q's laughs and tells her that because of her attitude, everyone has started calling her the Ice Princess, but Alya doesn't seem thrilled about it. She claims that she doesn't like the fact that they call her a princess, because it makes her feel like she was born with everything even though she has worked very hard for everything she has achieved till now. Q's smiled and tells her that he won't call her that name then. Alya then turns to him and apologizes for lashing at him the other day and asks whether she could do anything for him to show her gratitude. Q's tells her that she doesn't need to do all that as she was still the person who put the most effort, but Alya claims that she needs to repay him for his kindness. Suddenly a bunch of boys appear behind her, and the incels start bothering her again for a dance, pressuring her even though she didn't want to. Q's decides to take matters into his own hands and takes her arm before running into the grounds, asking Alya for a dance as her thanks. Finally, we return back to the present where Masha claims that it sounds like the start to a beautiful love story. But Alya again claims that he is just a friend because he is capable and can get things done. But Masha is not fooled as she smiles at her. The next morning, Q's goes to the students' council to cover for Yuki as she didn't come that day. There he ends up meeting with Masha, who tells Q's that she has heard a lot about him and wanted some help with shopping for supplies. He agrees, and she immediately thanks him and grabs his hands. Suddenly, she feels a familiar feeling as if she has met him before and asks him for his food name. Q's tells him her full name, and immediately she realizes something, but keeps her mouth shut and tells him in Russian that they should get moving. They start walking and enter a shopping mall where Masha completely forgets why she was here and starts looking at different stuffed toys to buy for the student council. She buys a cat plushie and also starts looking a lion wearing some glasses for the council president. But Q's tells her that he won't be a big fan. They start walking back when she enters a tea shop to try some of their tea. And while she was tasting the different types of brewing methods, Q's suddenly remembers how his parents separated when he was young, and he decided to stay with his dad. But Yuki ended up choosing their mom, forcing the siblings to be separated from each other. Suddenly, he snaps back to reality only to find Masha in front of him looking worried. She tells him that he looks pained and immediately hugs him while stroking his hair. This completely shocks him as he feels a wave of nostalgia come over him as he wonders why this feels so familiar and relaxing. His session quickly gets over though because he gets burned by the hot teacup while still wondering why Masha's touch reminds him of his childhood. Later that day, they walk back over to the student council room where the president immediately notices the huge toy in Masha's arms. He tells her that student council shouldn't be a place to put soft toys, but Masha doesn't seem to care about it and keeps telling him that she wanted to get him a lion. The president walks up to the shopping bags, scared what else did Masha buy, but thankfully the remaining things were ordinary school supplies, which brings him some relief. He thanks Q's for helping them buy the supplies as he doesn't trust Masha to shop alone. And Q's can totally understand it as he knows Masha would have made the council room a total theme park if left alone. The president again tells Q's that he should reconsider his decision to join the student council as they need capable people like him, and Masha seems to be in agreement as she claims that he should at least join them on paper. Q's asks why are they so hell-bent on making him join the council. And the president replies that he thinks Q's has a special talent with sorting things out, which is very important for a student council. He claims that Q's was an excellent vice president during his junior school, and Q's replies that while working on that position, he realized that there were no real ambitions or goals of his that he would be able to achieve if he continued being at that position, so it doesn't make sense for him. The president tells him that goals don't need to be 100% aligned with the goal of working at full efficiency. He claims that he joined the student council not because he wanted to transform the school for the better, but because he wanted to win the heart of the girl he liked. He whips out his phone and shows Q's the picture of a fat incel, looking very insecure. At first Q's doesn't identify the fatty, but Ken claims that it is none other than him, 2 years ago. Q's is shocked at the incredible glow-up transformation, while Ken tells him that 2 years ago, he was a loser with bad grades and no talent in any sports. But then he fell in love with a beautiful girl named Sarah, the vice president, but she was way too out of his league, so he decided to better himself in order to become a viable match as a boyfriend for a girl like Sarah. Becoming the council president was just a step in achieving that dream, so his reasoning to join the council was very selfish. Masha joins in the conversation and tells Q's that even she joined just because she was friends with Sasha and wanted to talk to her more, claiming that everyone who joins the council has their own selfish reasons, and that's completely fine. This seems to change Q's mind a little while Ken tells him that it's perfectly fine for him to join the council, even if his sole goal is to help someone become the president. Q's looks at a smiling Ken and asks him for some time to think upon it. He then realizes that Alya hasn't arrived yet, but Ken tells him that she probably will get late today as she has gone out to mediate a fight between the soccer and the baseball team, as both want to use the field. Q's immediately leaves the council room as he wonders whether he should check upon Alya to make sure she is doing fine. Meanwhile, Alya is not doing very fine as both the soccer and the baseball teams are at each other's throats as they hurl insult at each other like a Call of Duty lobby, when Alya tells them to talk politely. Alya tries to ask one of them to use a smaller field by the river, but none of the teams are willing to go there as they both start arguing again, while ignoring poor Alya's voice. She realizes that she always decided to work alone, and because of that she has no idea how to deal with people and make them listen to her. Tears start rolling down her cheeks as she wonders whether she is fit to be in the student council. Meanwhile, Q's reaches the area and overhears the heated discussion while Alya failed to mediate them. Q's decides that it is good experience for her and was about to leave, when he hears her call out for help in Russian, which only he understood. He decides to intervene in the middle and introduces himself to them as the student council member in charge of the general affairs. Alya seems surprised, but relieved to see him as he quickly takes control of the situation and claims that because the baseball team has fewer members, they will move to the smaller Riverside field, but in return, the soccer team members will help the baseball team move all their equipment. At first both the teams seemed uncertain about this compromise, but the managers of the soccer team speak up, volunteering to help the baseball team move, and seeing a couple of beauties willing to help them out soon softened the baseball team as well, and they agreed to the compromise. Later that evening, both Q's and Alya start walking back, while Q's apologizes for putting his nose in between her matters. She claims that she likes his nose between her juicy matters and asks whether he knew the managers would decide to help the baseball team. Q's smiles and claims that the captain of the baseball team is currently dating the manager of the football team, and that's why he wasn't saying too much, as he wanted to help his girlfriend. Meanwhile, the manager was confused what to do, since she knew soccer team's demands were too much. He claims that he simply gave them a middle way out, which he knew both the baseball captain and the manager would agree to, and the plan worked. Alya looks at him impressed that he thought and noticed these many things when they run into Ken, who asks whether everything got sorted out. Q's immediately realizes that Ken planned all of this to begin with as he asks Q's for his decision about the council. Q's takes a deep breath and tells him that he is ready to join the student council, which shocks Alya, while Ken tells him to come to the council immediately to get his joining form. Later that night when they start walking back, Alya asks Q's whether he is joining the council to help Yuki become the new president, and Q's asks what will she do if he does decide to help her. Yuki takes a deep breath and tells him that she won't back down and fight against him to become the new president, which makes Q's smile, and he tells her that he has decided to help her become the new president and not Yuki. This catches Alya off guard, while Q's promises that he will help her become the president of the council, no matter what, and offers her his hand. Alya wipes off her tears and takes his hand before smiling at him, which suddenly makes his heart feel something which he hasn't felt since the time he met that blonde girl in his childhood. Suddenly Alya twists his hand, asking whether he was thinking about some other girl right now, making Q's sweat, who wonders what to say in this situation. She asks him whether he was thinking about Yuki, and he immediately denies, but she thinks he is lying and delivers a tight slap, knocking him to the floor. She then walks up to him and helps him up back to his feet before they start walking back together. On the way they talk about everyday life, making jokes and having fun, when they finally reach Alya's apartments, and the time to say goodbye comes. Alya asks whether his cheek is still aching, but he claims that it's just stinging a little, but he should be fine, as he has experience with getting pepper sprayed by girls. Alya decides to relieve some of the pain as she walks up to him and plants a light kiss on his cheeks, making him blush as she walks away, claiming that it was just a friendly kiss. Q's can't believe what just happened, as he stands there blankly, wondering why this Russian girl is playing with his heart like this. He starts returning back home, and dies from cringe when he thinks about the corny things that he just said to Alya. He wonders what made him say things like that, but at the same time Alya was also going along with it, without trying to resist. He wonders whether she actually loves him, and all the flirting in Russian was real, but he smacks himself on the head, reminding himself that Alya is way beyond his league, and he shouldn't get his hopes up. He returns back home and realizes that if this entire day was a setup to make him join the student council, then Yuki must be in on it, so he enters the dark house to confront her. He finds her in the bathroom while she starts celebrating because the trope of walking in on your sister never happened in their life. Q screams at her that it didn't happen because it's not necessary, but Yuki straight up says that anime fans love fanservice. They walk into Q's room where she starts drying her hair out and asks whether the president or Masha managed to make him join the council. And he hesitantly replies that he did join the council, but there is a catch. Yuki looks at him eagerly while he tells her that instead of helping her win the seat for the president, he has decided to help Alya instead. There was a brief silence where Yuki looked very sad, but she was faking it as that was her entire plan. She starts acting all bratty though, and tells Q's that this is technically cheating, and Q's needs to spoil her now that he is not even going to support her through the elections. He takes the brush from her hand and starts brushing it, while telling her that he is really happy to be with her after being separated for so long because of their parents. Yuki smiles and tells him that she doesn't care whether he is her brother or not, but she will fight with all her strength to win the chair of the president. She leaves the room happy that her brother found someone who could motivate him to work harder and wonders how long he will be able to keep it up. The next morning, he wakes up on his own, surprised to find that Yuki didn't make a whole scene to try and wake him up. He wonders whether she got hurt by what he said yesterday and decides to make it up to her with some good breakfast. But the moment his feet touch the ground, he is jump-scared by her own sister, who starts laughing like a maniac and tells him that he needs to watch him back because now they are rivals. Q's realizes that his bratty sis will make life hell for him, but to his delight, Yuki ends up getting stuck like my stepsister. She tells Q's that she wants his help to unstuck her, but he decides to take revenge and starts pushing his bed sheet down her face to pack her in with the terrible sweaty smell. Later that morning, Alya sits down on her desk as she keeps anxiously looking at Q's empty desk, wondering how he will act today. She seems a little embarrassed by her actions yesterday and gets jump-scared when Q's walks in the room. She tries to act all normal, but when she looks at him that day, she realizes that he looks much better than usual. All during the class, she keeps looking at him, wondering why is he glowing so much, even though he looked completely normal. She also realizes that he didn't sleep in the class today and wonders whether he is doing this for her. Later during a volleyball game, she seems completely distracted when the balls fly over to her, but she quickly snaps into action and hits the ball hard into the opponent's court, scoring a point. She immediately looks over to the guys' team where Q's gets hit from behind with the ball and gets knocked out cold. A little while later, he steps out of the gym to get some fresh air as he rubs his head, when Alya walks after him and asks whether he is feeling fine. She checks his head for a fever before fixing her hair, and all this while Q's is shocked to see that she looks even more pretty than usual. He immediately looks away and goes over to drink some water, but this thirsty-ass man still keeps looking at Alya drinking water. He immediately puts his head in the water, feeling really happy about himself when Masha walks up to them and asks whether Q's is okay as she heard he got hit. Q's is immensely pleased with himself for bagging the most beautiful girl in the school and starts looking at the clouds when Masha tells him to bend down and starts drying his hair out. After going through literal heaven, he thanks her and claims that he now knows how a dog feels. Soon Alya tells Masha that she should go back to her class, as Q's and her are going to go as well. She starts dragging Q's away to a secluded spot where Q's wonders whether he is going to get scolded for touching another girl, but instead she starts asking whether he can still feel pain in his head and suggests him to put an ice pack on it to prevent swelling. He is surprised that she is being so nice today and wonders whether they have already entered the honeymoon phase and will be acting all lovey-dovey. He tries to touch his head, but he backs off, claiming that she isn't being herself today. Alya starts blushing and claims that Q's was looking different today, and she was worried if anything was wrong. Q's tells her that apart from not having breakfast, everything was the same today. Hearing this, Alya realizes that this massive jerk didn't try to better himself for her, but was simply too hungry to sleep in the class. She calls him out for it, but he claims that he simply didn't sleep in the class as he slept very nicely last night. This humiliates her even more as she realizes that all night long she was unable to sleep. This idiot was having the best sleep of his night. She immediately walks away in anger, muttering to herself that she can never actually fall in love with a stupid person like Q's, while he felt much better now that Alya was back to her original self. Later that day, after the bell rang, Q's happily gets up from his seat and asks Alya whether they can go to the council room together. She gets up without saying a word and starts walking, as if annoyed at him, but Q's knows that she is just at Sundir and nothing else. On the way to the council room, they spot the boys from both the baseball and the soccer team apologize to someone in the council room before running away scared. Q's wonders what that was all about and enters the room only to find a purple-haired tomboy with a bamboo stick in her hand, making her look even more threatening. Q's immediately tries to shut the door again, but the girl blocks it with her hand and opens it up back again before apologizing to them and introducing herself as Sarah, the secretary of this council and the president's girlfriend. They both enter the council and take their seat, while Q's asks what were the athletes doing in this room. Sarah tells him that they were having an argument again, so this time she went to sort it out with her bamboo sword and her fists, and it was just a matter of threatening violence, after which both the teams automatically decided to find a middle ground. The president laughs at this situation, claiming that Sarah is not as scary as she looks, and they start doing their lovey-dovey stuff, while Q's and Alya make jokes about them. Soon Masha enters as well, and the Q's first council meeting begins as he steps up and introduces himself as the head of general affairs and states the fact that he will be partnered up with Alya for the next election to help her become the president. Alya looks at him dreamily while the president smiles and wishes him best of luck. He tells Q's that since he was the vice president in junior school, he should quickly get the hang of it, but for today he is going to pair up with Masha as they are very short-staffed right now and need all the help they can get. Q's agrees immediately, while Yuki smiles and tells the president that she needs to have a conversation with the art club regarding the festival coming up and tells the president that she would need the help of Alya as well because she is the treasurer, and they need to discuss finances. This is a bit strange because none of this had been discussed before, but Alya agrees to go immediately. Both the girls leave the room while Q's wonders what kind of plan is Yuki hatching as he knows that something is definitely up. His suspicions turn out to be true when Yuki takes Alya to a separate room with no one in sight, where Alya decides to diffuse the tension and apologizes to her for stealing Q's as her own partner for the next elections. Yuki looks down and tells Alya not to worry as this is not her fault and Q's made his own choices which she doesn't really mind, but she would have been much happier if he chose her. Alya looks at her and builds up her courage before asking Yuki what does she feel about Q's. To her absolute surprise, Yuki straight up tells Alya that she loves Q's more than anything else in this world, including her own mom and dad. Alya is still shocked when Yuki brings up the same question to her and asks whether she likes Q's as well. Alya immediately starts blushing and looks down before replying that Q's is just a friend for her. Yuki decides to press her even more, and asks whether she is in love with her or not. Alya finds herself at a loss of words once again, while Yuki pushes her against the wall, claiming that she has already told her that she loves Q's, and now it's Alya's turn to make things clear. Alya struggles for a bit, before replying that even though she doesn't know whether she loves him, she will never have Yuki have him. Yuki smiles cheekily and tells her that this is enough conversation for today as they need to work as well, and leaves the room, while Alya wonders what the hell just happened. Meanwhile, back in the council room, Masha and Q's where they spend their time cross-checking documents and making corrections wherever needed. Q's realizes that Masha is really good at her job when his eyes wander off towards Chisa, who doesn't have enough brain cells to even take out a book properly, as she falls to the ground with all the books. Soon Masha is also done with her work and tells Q's that they should take a small tea break before working again. She immediately gets up and hands over to get some black tea, while Q's asks her whether Russians drink black tea in the summers. She tells her that usually they drink it only during the winters, but since her mother is Japanese and loves black tea, they drink it very often in the summers too. This makes Q's think about how the girl he liked when he was young also had a mother that loved black tea. When Masha breaks his thoughts and asks whether he knows a lot about Russians, he lies and claims that he has only watched a couple of movies and that's it, while in fact he studied really hard to learn as much as possible about the Russian culture. Masha soon sits down beside him and starts eating spoonfuls of jam before every sip of tea, which is also a Russian thing. Q's also tries to do the same, but it is too sweet for his taste. Soon after that, Yuki and Alya also return from their errand, and Masha immediately sets out to make tea for them as well. Alya looks a little grumpy, but puts her chair really close to Q's and sits down, asking if he has any problem. Q's immediately looks over to Yuki and realizes that she has pulled some new trick this time and wonders what's going to happen. Masha cheerfully asks Alya whether she found any guys she likes and would love to marry, but Alya shakes her head before softly whispering in Russian that it's too early for marriage. Q's looks at her when Masha puts down a huge plate of jam in front of her, which she starts gulping down angrily. Soon the president dismisses all of them, and Q's starts the walk back home with Alya while the sun starts setting. He wonders what Yuki told her, as she looks very stressed, and decides to do something about it. He invites her to a small cafe, claiming that they should discuss a little about their presidential election, because they don't get much time during the school. Alya whispers in Russian, asking whether this is a date, which makes Q's blush, but he pretends not to understand it, and enters the cafe with her. They sit down, and she gets 2 big boy smoothies so she can post them on Insta, when Q's decides to address the Russian in the room and asks whether something happened with Yuki. She gave him an annoyed look and told him that nothing happened, which just made him absolutely sure that Yuki pulled some trick on her. Suddenly Alya asks Q's whether he is dating Yuki, but Q's outright denies it, claiming that he would date his own mom before dating Yuki. Alya looks at him suspiciously, so Q's decides to clear some air, and tells her that Yuki is not as ladylike and innocent as she looks, and promises that she is simply messing around and teasing her. This makes Alya relax a little, while Q's tells her that they need to do something about Yuki, because as it is, they will definitely lose the elections. Alya looks at him a little frustrated, but he claims that this is a truth. He explains that usually there are much more candidates that try to fight for an election, and after a general meeting where the candidates are supposed to have a brainless debate like Biden and Trump, half of the candidates drop out, because they realize they don't have any support. Then finally, the top 3 candidates are chosen to run the election, and amongst them, one is chosen. Unfortunately, this time everyone thinks that Yuki will win by default, and because of that no one is even interested in standing against her. While Q's is giving his monologue, Alya is completely distracted by the fact that even though they are alone in a cafe, he is not even acting a little shy, as if he comes here with different girls every single day. She ends up biting her entire straw before she decides to stress eat right in front of him. Q's is a little surprised by this, and this breaks his thought train, while Alya decides that this is a time to pull the classic move of sharing the same spoon. She asks whether Q's would like to have a bite, but when he denies, she still tells him to have 1 bite. She extends the spoon while he asks for a different once, but Alya tells him to shut up and open his mouth, as these things are very normal in Russia. Q's looks at her face and realizes that she is clearly lying, but opens his mouth regardless and rejoices at the first deep-throated indirect kiss that he has ever had. Soon they return back to their shy self, when Alya asks what should they do if they want to beat Yuki. Q's tells her that last year their president wasn't even in the student council, and yet ended up winning the elections, but that was because he had a plan. Q's explains that at the start of the year, Ken was a fatty who had average grades at best. But soon as the year went on, he ended up losing all the weight and started doing better in academics, which drew all the fatphobic people to his side, as they realized that Ken can achieve things that he doesn't have through hard work. This way Ken created a compelling story which is needed for every election. He orders some food for himself and tells her that she should give a speech in front of the entire student body and try to win them that way, and Alya agrees. Soon his food arrives, and they start eating when he offers Alya a bite. She eagerly agrees, but this loser gives her a different spoon and a bowl to eat, and because it was super spicy, she ends up tearing up once again. While walking back at night, Alya asks Q's whether he has any idea who Yuki will be partnering up with, and Q's replies that she shouldn't have much trouble finding a partner, as she is pretty popular, but claims that if she picks Tan as her partner, it would be very difficult for them to win. Alya asks who Tan is, and he explains that she is the opponent of Yuki from junior school who fought till the very end for the position, but lost by a small margin. After that they decide to head back to their homes for the night, and the next day they meet again in the council room, where surprisingly enough Yuki has already found a new partner. She comes in with a glowing face, smiling at Q's before revealing that her partner is going to be Ayano from her class, who looks at Q's directly, while he wonders why is his sister tormenting him so much. The next morning when he goes back to school, he is approached by Ayano, who asks him whether he is seriously planning to fight the elections against Yuki. Q's wonders what is this girl planning to do, and replies that he is indeed going to fight elections with Alya, as he has promised to do everything in his power to make her the president. Ayano looks at him blankly and asks whether he forgot how strict his grandfather is about the matters of family. This brings a distaste in Q's mouth, as he remembers his grandfather constantly barking about how family is the most important. He tells Ayano that Yuki is still the most important person to him in this world, and he would always be by her side. But at the same time, he is going to help Alya win these elections, and that's his final decision. Ayano bows her head and asks whether he has any message for his grandfather, and Q's heatedly claims that if the old man has anything to say, he should say it to his face and leave Yuki alone. After that, he walks over to his classroom where his two incel friends grabs a magazine filled with pictures of idols and asks which one Q's prefers. Q's is a true Sigma, claiming he isn't interested in two-dimensional paper cuttings, but when forced to pick one, he picks the girl with brown hair. The bald incel immediately comments about how this woman looks like Masha and asks whether Q's is making moves on her, but Q's replies that she already has a boyfriend and is way above his league anyways. Suddenly, Alya ends up entering the classroom and spots Q's holding the magazine in his hands. This pisses her off as she calls him an animal in Russian before asking why the hell would a member of the student council bring a book like this. But Q's promises that Takeshi, the single-brain-celled incel, brought this stupid magazine and not him. Alya doesn't seem to care and sits down annoyed, while Takeshi, who is dumber than Biden himself, asks whether Q's would like to date Yuki. Q's replies that they are not in Alabama, so no. And moreover, he wants a girl who can also be his best friend. Alya smiles and claims in Russian that she can be his best friend as well. This makes Q's blush, while the others ask what's up with him. He tries to change the subject, but Takeshi's brain is smoother than a bowling ball as he can't get a hint and continues saying that a girl should have a cute smile and should be very friendly with everyone. Q's realizes that Alya is feeling sad about this, so he asks her to be a bit more considerate. So this pea-brained incel jumps up and claims that personality doesn't matter as long as the girl is as pretty as Alya. This was the worst thing he could have said to a modern, strong, independent woman, as Alya gets into his face and tells him that incels like him will never find a woman who is three-dimensional, and grabs the magazine before taking it away. Later that day, all of the council members arrive at the council, while the girls decide to gamble Kit Kats as it is already sanctioned in Russia. Yuki decides to take everything away from Alya, so she is forced to survive on knockoff products from Russia and seems to be doing pretty well, as she is good at bluffing and Alya can't read her well. Sarah, Ken and Q's are sitting on the opposite table, keeping scores when Ken comments that he always thought Alya would be more composed, but she seems to be super easy to read, which Yuki is taking full advantage of. Q's laughs, claiming that a battle of wits is where Yuki is at her strongest, when Sarah claims that she can't ever figure out what's going on with Masha though. She always looks with such a pretty angelic smile that it would seem like she is a Russian goddess herself with no flaws in her. Ken laughs, but then asks about Ayano's relations with Yuki, and Q's replies that she serves Yuki and her family, as her grandparents did before her. Sarah is surprised by this, and asks whether her parents also serve the Yuki family, but Sarah shakes her head, claiming that they are office workers, and she just chose this path because she admired the commitment of her grandparents. She almost lets it slip that Q's and Yuki are siblings, but Q's manages to cover it up, and tells her to be more careful as no one in their school knows about their relationship. Ken seems very interested and asks whether she received any kind of special training, and Ayano nods, claiming that her grandparents have drilled it in her that she needs to be like a shadow, always away from limelight and working behind the scenes to make sure the person who she is serving never has to face any issues. Soon enough, Masha also walks up to their table and sits down beside Q's, asking Ayano if she can refill her cup. She tells everyone that Alya ended up sending her away as she wanted to play on her own. They all look at both Yuki and Alya completely engrossed in her game, when Q's claims that Alya seems to be enjoying herself. The others can't really see this, as she seems super stressed about the game. Soon the bottle of juice that they were sharing runs out, so Q's and Masha decide to head out for a drink run and ask everyone for their preferred drink. Literally every single person in the room mentioned a different drink, but Q's ends up remembering all of them exactly after one listen, which surprises everyone as he simply walks outside. While walking with Masha as the sun was setting, she thanks him for standing in the elections with Alya, as it means a lot to her. Q's replies that she doesn't have to thank him for something like that, but Masha claims that this is very special, as Alya never lets anyone help her as she hates depending on others, but surprisingly she is willing to get help this time. Q's straight up asks whether she intentionally acts like a stupid fod around Alya. This takes Masha by surprise, but she smiles, claiming that she doesn't want to compete against her own sister, as she knows Alya is a super hard worker. This makes Q's think about his own overachieving sister, who looks so elegant at school, and wonders whether she pretends to be a total nerd at home, but comes to the decision that the person at home is the actual Yuki, and not what she becomes in the school. Masha asks Q's why does he pretend to be a lazy person when he himself is super responsible. This catches him off guard, but he smiles and claims that he wants to live his life without disappointing anyone. So he tries to act lazy so no one depends on him ever. Masha smiles warmly and pats him on the head, telling him that he is doing a great job, while Q's feels like her dog, but kind of likes it as well. The next morning, Alya gets stream sniped by Tan, the old rival of Yuki, who stops her in the middle of the school, and asks why the hell did she stoop so low, that she pulled Yuki's partner to join her team instead. Alya was shocked at this, and didn't know what to say, while Tan asked her whether she was scared that she would have no chances of winning if Yuki was partnered up with Q's. Everyone in the school hears this fight and start watching, embarrassing Alya even more, who tells her that Q's himself wanted to be in her team, but Tan refuses to believe it. Thankfully, Q's arrives at the right moment, and tells Tan to back off as he indeed chose to run with Alya, and Yuki knows of this and doesn't mind it either. He tells Tan to apologize to Alya, but she walks to him straight up and challenges Q's into a presidential debate. She claims that people like Q's shouldn't have a place in the student council, let alone the elections, but Alya intervenes, telling her to back off, as if she wants to debate him, she will have to go through her. Tan turns out to be a total savage, and tells Alya that she is simply a puppet who gets good grades, but has no social or life skills, so she will just get herself embarrassed, but claims that it might be better for the entire school to get rid of the eye candy from the presidential election, so she challenges both of them to a presidential debate at once. The next morning, both Q's and Alya head over to the council president, revealing their encounter with Tan, which confuses the president. He claims that Tan is a respected student and very smart as well, which means that it wouldn't be very easy to win against her in these debates. Alya doesn't seem to be bothered by it, but Q's mentions that they don't really have anything to gain from it, since Tan is not even in the presidential race. But Alya claims that it would still give her an opportunity to show her skills and ideology against Tan in front of the student body, which might win her some more support. Later that day, both Q's and Alya go over their game plan, while Q's tests her by listening to her answers against Tan's accusations till he is satisfied with her preparation. Before they were about to leave, Alya asks whether Tan doesn't like Q's, but he looks off into distance, replying that he thinks that both of them respect each other equally, and they don't have any bad blood. In fact, she was a very good friend of Q's during middle school. This surprises Alya a little, who asks why would Tan turn against Q's this way, and he replies that Tan probably thinks that he is simply trying to bring chaos in the elections. In Tan's eyes, Q's is leaving Yuki when she is at her strongest to support a different candidate for absolutely no reason than to spark some hurdles in her way and make things more interesting, which Tan doesn't like. The next morning, they both walk down to the auditorium, when they are approached by a Gen Z girl named Mia, who is basically Tan's friend. She seems to know Q's already and tells them to relax a bit before walking ahead. Alya doesn't really like the way she carries herself, but Q's claims that she is very popular among the students, so her words carry a lot of weight. Alya realizes that a person with connections can definitely be a threat, but Q's tells her not to worry about that and focus on the debate first. The auditorium soon starts getting filled up by students from every class gossiping about the elections. Alya slowly starts getting nervous at the sight of so many students who are probably talking about how she is not worthy of this position. She starts spiraling very quickly, thinking about how she has never made a meaningful connection with anyone before, but Q's snaps her out of it, and tells her to calm down, as her enemy today is not Tan, but the perfect vision of herself that she wants to become. He tells her to Netflix and chill for a while, as if anything goes wrong, he will handle it. This calms her down a bit, and soon they all take their positions as the debate starts. Ken introduces both sides, and asks the opposition about their view, and Tan quickly moves up to the podium, and instead of aiming for Alya, she decides to aim for Q's. She explains that the current members of the student council are solely picked out by the president and the vice president, which means that there is a lot of place for corruption, nepotism, and favoritism. She claims that students who have never achieved anything in their life, who get average grades in academics and are no good in sports, suddenly become the member of the student council, which makes them higher status than every other student who has been working his ass off to achieve something. She continues that the members of the student council should be solely picked out on the basis of their grades and performance in extracurricular activities by the teachers themselves, so that they can get rid of lazy slackers who do nothing but create chaos for everyone. This really impresses everyone, as the entire student body claps, while Ken calls up Alya to defend against these views. Alya confidently moves up to the podium and starts presenting her point of view. She explains that the school prides itself over the self-governance of students, as it shows that the students studying in this school are old enough to know how to carry themselves. Moreover, if Tan believes that the student council needs the help of teachers to decide something as small as choosing the members of the council, then it simply means that she is weak-minded and doesn't think she can do that on her own. Moreover, academic grades are not everything, as people have their own strengths and weaknesses. A slacker who is average in studies can have incredibly amazing social and problem-solving skills, which are very important to the student council. Q's realizes that she has saved her position now, but Tan decides to interrupt and starts questioning, but all her questions turn out to be trash as Alya calmly manages to answer everything. While Q smiles as Tan was thinking that he is her rival in this debate, when in reality it was always Alya. Tan struggles to maintain her position and asks what would happen if the president or vice president go berserk. But before Alya could answer, some of the students start creating a ruckus, calling Alya an outsider and claiming that Tan's is much better suited in the council than her. This totally shakes her concentration, and she forgets what she was going to answer. Q's realizes that this is the work of Mia, who planted these students. But the trick has worked, as the disturbance completely rattled Alya's confidence while Tan pushes her to answer the question. Alya was just about to break down completely when she feels the hands of Q's on her back, who takes over the mic and claims that Alya seems to have lost her voice because she was deep-throating some hot dogs last night. He claims that he will continue the debate from here on, but instead of talking about points, he straight up starts a stand-up comedy routine and completely roasts the poor president for no reason. He claims that if the decision of who enters the student council was given over to the teachers who would select the top scorers of the school, Ken would have never become a president, as he had very trash scores and was a total fat loser during his first year. But because student council awards passion and talent, Ken was able to outgrow his fat self and became the president that they all love today. With that, he drops the mic and everyone looks at Tan for her answers, but she doesn't want to get roasted, so she runs away, followed by Alya. Alya catches her after a while, only to find her crying, as it turns out that she was shipping Q's with Yuki all this while, but suddenly Alya came in the picture and Q's left Yuki as if it was nothing. This made her very mad, as she always thought Yuki was the best since she defeated her during the middle school presidential elections, so Q's choosing Alya meant that even Alya is better than her. Alya understands her mindset, but tells her to get help from a psychologist and returns back to the auditorium, where she finds out that the debate was concluded and she was awarded the victory in the debate. She tells Q's about what Tan said, and Q's replies that she was one of the fiercest competitors they had during the middle school, but she ended up accepting her defeat against Yuki and Q's, as she thought she could never defeat them. Alya looks at him and claims that she will work as hard as possible to become a person that Tan respects just as much as she respects Yuki, so that she can approve of her partnership with Q's as well. Q's smiles at this, but Alya asks him why did he ever pick her over Yuki when they had such a strong partnership. Q's looks down sad as he remembers how he was forced to be away from his sister and wanted to make it up to her by supporting her throughout life, but decides to keep this information hidden and tells Alya that he never truly wanted to be a vice president and hated the spotlight. But he owed Yuki a favor, so he was forced to do it. But this time things are different, as he himself wants to support and work with Alya, who he believes would definitely make an excellent president. Alya seems to be very happy with this conversation when Q's asks why did she decide to run the presidential elections with him, since it is such an important thing, and she could have found someone much better. But Alya replies in Russian, and for once even Q's doesn't understand what she said. She immediately gets up and starts walking while he follows her, asking what did she just say to him, but Alya smiles playfully and tells him to learn Russian if he wants to know what she said. If you liked this video, you would love the story about this magicless loser born in a world filled with magic, who decides to take up a sword instead to climb his way to become the strongest so his crush would notice him.